After 10 years of working as a teacher and going up the career ladder, trying to get my experience in different grades, I had also gotten two certifications. I was a bilingual certified teacher, and I was also I gotten my special ed certification. And roughly 4 or 5 years before getting my last year in, I had already been working on my leadership, my principal leadership certification, and gotten my master's degree in educational leadership. So after 10 years, I walked away from this. I decided to quit the job. And it was because I had been asked to give up my special ed role as a bilingual SPED teacher and go back to the classroom. Well, I did not want to go back to the classroom because I felt like I had served my time. I feel like I was really happy in the SPED role and felt like I wanted to get a few more years under my belt. And when my principal came to me and said she needed me to come back to the classroom as a kindergarten teacher, I was I was taken aback. And um, I went home and I talked to my husband and I told him about the meeting that I had with my principal. And I had shared with him that I did not, I was not happy about that. I loved my role as a special ed teacher, and the responsibilities and everything. I just felt like it was awesome. I mean, it's I can't really tell you how SPED is not for everyone, but for me, it was awesome. I loved it, and I loved my years. Don't get me wrong. I had already at that point in time, I had already done 7 years in the classroom, with the different grades. I had worked primarily in elementary, and then I got half a year in sixth grade, and um, knew that the intermediate or the middle school was not for me, or even secondary. For a long time, I thought I should be working with the older kids, and it just confirmed that I could not do, or there was no way that I could do high school or middle school. But when I went back and started working with the smaller kids and doing SPED, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. I felt finally I was in a workspace. I had worked so hard all of my life, um, and not to mention the money in teaching was not anything nowhere near as what I was doing when I was doing corporate sales. The stress was the same. When I worked in corporate sales, the stress was extremely high. I mean, I was on $1 million quota on a quarterly basis, and sometimes it would just average in that range, and it was always getting pushed up. But again, when I did corporate sales, I worked and got paid at a higher uh, salary and commissions. Of course, I was in a higher tax bracket, but when I left corporate sales and I went into teaching, there was those pros and cons, right? The pros, I'll say this. Anytime you're thinking about quitting a job, you always have to set up a T chart. I mean, that is what has always worked for me. You make a T chart, right? You kind of just do this T, and on one side of the T, right? One side, this side, you say, okay, this is a plus, the pros, and on this side you put the minus. So I always would write out when I don't know how I figured out how to do that, but I would always write out, okay, what are all my pros and what are all the minuses? And anytime I have been felt with or faced with a major decision in my life, that has always helped me and that has always saved me and has always made me see the bigger picture, because I've never really had parents or grandparents that I could go to for advice. I've always had to kind of figure things out on my own. Now, as I know about astrology, now I know why. I mean, it's something that I do on my own anyway. But when I walked away from my teaching career, coming back to this point, um, I walked away from a salary, right? I was getting paid. I had insurance. I had benefits. I had a 401k, um, and I was providing to my household income. I'm a mom of three, but at that time, my husband, he was a truck driver and he was working long haul, and I just thought, you know what? I do his taxes. Um, my two other children, my older kids, had already grown up. And I made a plan. I said, you know what? I've been married to my husband now at that point in time. I guess we'd already been together 8, 10 years or so. And I said, you know what? He can take care of us and we'll make do. We'll just cut out expenses. We'll cut out, we'll cut back and I'll figure out a way to, at that time, I think Uber had just come out at that time. And I remember hearing other moms talk about going to drive for Uber and that kind of thing. And I just thought, that would be cool if I needed to do that. But, I didn't do that right away. But I remember meeting one of my husband's friends, an elderly lady. She was an immigrant from Colombia, and she cleaned houses. And one of the things that she was always sharing with me was her trips to these Caribbean tropical places, and she cleaned houses. And she also had some cosmetic work done that is not cheap. The cosmetic work was done here in the big city where we live at. And I always wondered how she did that if she was a cleaning lady. She cleans houses for a living. And I thought, if this lady can survive and have these trips and pay for these kind of, cosmetic things, why can't I rely on my husband? And at that time, we were struggling. He and I was really frustrated with him because he was bringing in his family from, Cuba, and I was trying my best to support him the best that I could, but I didn't really feel like he was supporting me. So our marriage was kind of really rocky. And it wasn't that I was trying to separate from him, but at the same time, I just felt like I was hitting rock bottom. And so, and I'm going to get teary eyed thinking about it, but the T chart that I'm talking about, I had that experience of making that T chart prior to coming into this relationship with my husband. And it had been a while since I'd used that T chart. So when my principal asked me to, take on the other role, of course I was going to continue to get paid the same. I mean, I think I was just going to lose my SPED stipend. I wasn't going to lose my bilingual stipend, but SPED stipend was not much. I mean, $1,000 or $30 a month. So that it was not a big deal to me to lose a SPED stipend. What the big deal to me was, I felt like going back to the classroom was a demotion. And because our relationship, my husband and I, we were at a point in our lives where we were really stressed out. He was really stressed out. He had been dealing with his family, calling or it was some drama that if you go back and listen to my other video, you'll see more about what I was talking about, what was going on with the family that the refugees that came, and the burden that it was placing on us, because he was a long haul truck driver, so he was always gone, and everything fell on me, going to work, taking care of our son. My kids had already moved out. My older two had already moved out. They were on their own, but taking care of his brother and his nephew that had come was a huge burden, because I was having to take them to immigration, and I would sometimes have to drive, an hour to immigration for their appointments, or I'd have to drive them into the major city close by and, take them to those appointments as well, to meet with the immigration attorneys, and just all these different things. I was also teaching them when you come from Cuba, you don't have experience you don't know how to use a microwave. You don't know how to drive. You don't even know how to use a electric can opener. So I was taking care of 3 babies. So you can imagine the stress was really high. So when the summer came around and we were packing up our classrooms, and my principal pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, we're we were getting ready to, obviously everybody at the end of the year, they're looking at the following year. That's what schools do. Principals are looking at who's going to fall into which role, who's going to get what classroom, if there's any classroom moves and all that kind of stuff." She asked me, to take that was what was coming up for me, and I just said, okay, well, I'm going to go home and talk to my husband, and I'll get back with you tomorrow and let you know what I decide. So it was a very, very hard decision for me, and I loved what I did. It didn't pay anything, not like what I made when I worked in corporate sales, making commissions and winning trips, etc. But I will say that it was the hardest decision for me to make, but I put a plan in place. I had actually found a network marketing company, Vitamin Cells, and had already been on the product for about 2 weeks. And I like, when I find something that I believe in, I don't mind sharing. So I started talking about it on my Facebook and sharing how I was having these great results. And at that time, I blew out the numbers, and it just worked out to where I was like, you know what, I'll just do this as a side hustle, worst case scenario, and see what happens. So thankfully, I was able to fall on that. And of course, my husband, he was a long haul driver, and we were getting my husband's family was getting assistance from the church, the organization that helps the refugees here. So of course, I would take them. I mean, it's not much, really isn't that much. So it's not like I can say that we were relying on that. We were not relying on that, but um, my husband made enough to support us. And I will say that it has been 10 and a half years now. This summer will be 11 years since I walked away from my last job. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I mean, I felt like, well, if I have to go back to teaching, I can always go back. I mean, my um, um, evaluations were always excellent. I always got excellent reviews on my evaluations. I still have my certifications. I have my special ed, my bilingual, and my principal leadership, certifications. So there's a shortage. I knew that I could always go back, but luckily and thankfully, I put a plan in place. And I've done different side hustles to continue to provide for my part, because I don't always like to ask for my husband for money. It's not something that I do, but because I am Christian and I was raised to, go to church. I learned that through prayer and through just good Christian friends, that when you get married and you're one, and you become two, and you're married, this now is a union. And so I always believed at that point in time that we were cheating on each other, because he had his own bank account and I had my own bank account. But I really believe that quitting my job, yes, it was rough, it was scary, but I put a plan in place, and we combined our income. And I came up with different side hustles. I mean, we have chickens, and we have eggs, we have animals, we have goats, we've had pigs, we've had all the animals. I mean, my husband is from Cuba, and he was raised on ranches. And so he sells pigeons, and we go to market and we sell some of our animals there, that kind of thing. So we've always done, we do a lot of different things together. And then of course I was doing my direct market, or MLM, which was a vitamin company. And I'm still a part of it. I still take those products religiously, faithfully. So I got an income. I built a team up. I've got great experience doing that. I worked that side hustle really hard for the first 3 years. Um, it is coming up. I'm actually coming on my 11th year with that company as well. So that's one of my side hustles that, I know some of y'all have asked me about, but, so we do different things. And the other thing was, we had to cut back. We cut back on cable. Um, I've always been a frugal shopper. I don't really shop for myself. I'll shop at Walmart. And, whenever my kids would ask for designer things, I'd be like, you can save up for it, or you can go get your own job. And if you want something like, of that name, you can go and, get that on your own. Because my husband has always said, what our job is as parents is, as long as we provide a roof over our head, we provide food on the table, and, warm clothes, that's what our kids need. And so that's what we've done. But when I quit my job, like I said, my older two were already on their own. They were kids from my first marriage. And now in my second marriage, I said, you know what? I did a lot of soul searching. And because I felt like our marriage was splitting apart with all that stress, and he was gone all the time, it actually became a blessing for us, and we became we became one at that point. And we combined, we closed off his account. He came in and came onto my account. I had a credit card. I added him to my credit card, and I just started praying over our money. And any money that we'd make in cash. We would just put it in envelopes. And that was one of the things that I was trying to say about our Colombian friend, the immigrant. She gave me her secret. She said that she would, any money that she would make, she would, if she wanted something, she would just put it in an envelope and hide it. And she would put the name of that goal that she was going on a cruise. She would just start putting money away into that envelope and just put it away and not touch it. And I thought, wow, that I could do that. And so we started doing that. So I would put money away. We started praying more together as a family. We would bless, and we, till this day, we've showed our youngest how to pray and bless the gifts that we've received off our land. And and basically that's what what this is about. Once you decide to walk away from a job, you've got to have a plan in place, because life really is no joke, especially for us. My husband doesn't have family, and I don't have family that I can go to. My parents are estranged, my biological parents. And yes, I have an aunt and uncle that I can call if I really, I really, really am needing some major advice, and I can't figure it out on my own. I'll call them, but it's not like I can lean on them. It's not the same. And so, they have 5 kids of their own. So I was just the niece, right? But I just wanted to come on here. I got to thinking about how, I quit that job, and it was dear. It was very dear to my heart, because I had actually walked away from, I'd sacrificed a major career that I had, which is another story. I could probably make a second video about that one. And when I quit that job and went into teaching and took that huge cut in pay. But anyway, if you have anything, if any of this resonated for you, and you want to, um, if this resonated for you, please give me a like, subscribe to my channel, or share this video with somebody you think that is thinking about quitting their job. All right, well, y'all have a great one. Thanks for watching.